Hello, hello. My name is April Malone, and I'm with Yes, I Work From Home, and this is the podcast. Today I have my good friend Angela Norleen with me, and Angela and I go way back to Minnesota. She's still there. Angela is a medical transcriptionist, otherwise known as a health documentation specialist, and we used to work together for a long time. So Thank you for coming today, Angela.
Oh, you're welcome.
So Angela and I met each other. Let's talk about how we met for the first time.
Okay, yeah. We met at your wedding, didn't we? Like, we worked together, but
Yes.
we never actually met each other. And then, you got married, and I was like, I'm going to come to your wedding. So that was the first time we actually met.
Yes, and I'm so glad you did.
Yeah.
And you brought along another lady who's now left us, but that was great because we actually were really close friends even at that time. Like, we had never met each other in person,
Right.
But I think we had been working together for a year and a half, 2 years before that.
Yeah, probably.
We started working together in July of 2008, right when I bought a house during the housing market crash problem. And you were just coming back from maternity leave. Was that like fall of 2008?
Let's see. So that would have been like around June or July of 2009.
Right. Okay. So I have been doing this by myself without you for a year. Well, the reason I think we got connected is because we were both working that third shift schedule, and we usually didn't have supervisors with us. And so a lot of times when we were having, technical problems or troubleshooting, we would have to rely on one another to try to problem solve. So, Angela, how long have you been doing this kind of work, medical transcription?
So I have been working at the clinic for 23 years. I started out as a medical secretary and worked on campus. And then after my second baby was born, I needed to work a job that was an off shift. So I transitioned from medical secretary to transcription because transcription was a 24/7 operation. So I worked second shift for a couple of years. And then now I've been working third shift for 14 years.
When you had your first baby, what were you doing when you were on site? Was that baby going to daycare, or how were you taking care of that one?
Yes. So she was going to daycare, and then my sister and my mom weren't working at the time, so they would pick her up. So she would only go for a few hours a day to daycare. But then they both started working, so then she was going full time. And when I was pregnant with my second baby, and then after my second baby was born was when I decided I don't want two kids in daycare full time, and my husband's job.
So you wanted to pick an off shift.
Yep. So that's why I switched out. So then I worked second shift, so I would go to work when my husband came home. And so, that worked pretty well. But I've always been kind of a night person. So when the opportunity came for me to go to third shift, I jumped on it.
So what kind of hours were you working when you finally went to third shift?
So I was mainly working like an 11 to 7 kind of shift, or 11 to 7:30. And then they allowed us to work 10-hour days. And that's what I do now. So now I work Monday through Thursday from like 9 p.m. until 7:30 a.m.
I feel like you and I used to work the weekends together a lot too.
Yeah.
When I was originally hired into that position, I was working, it was terrible. I was hired in, new.
Yeah.
And so I got the worst shift, and I was working 11 p.m. until 9 a.m., but it was like Thursday, Friday, Saturday night.
Yeah.
So that was basically my whole weekend. I think you've, over the years, have been able to kind of finagle a schedule that you like a little bit better.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yep. I used to work weekends too. And then probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I got promoted to a lead position and on overnights, and there were 2 leads, and the other lady that got hired, we both worked 4/10s, and she didn't mind working weekends. So she worked Thursday through Sunday, and I worked Sunday through Wednesday. So it worked out pretty good for me that she didn't mind working weekends.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. That was great. And that was right around the time that I had my third child. And actually, there was a big organization change in our department where all of a sudden people who always had to work nights and weekends were given the opportunity to change their shifts.
Yeah.
And I think we both agreed to stay on nights. Like at some point, we decided that was better for our family.
Right.
Because of childcare, right?
Right. And just
I was
because
able to take that time.
I was just going to say, just because I prefer to work overnights. I just have always been a night person ever since I was little. And we just did a shift change at work a couple of months ago, and I could have gone to first shift, and I said nope.
Really, still, even though now that your kids are at school, sorry, I said that wrong. Even though your kids are at school now, you still wanted to keep third shift. Why is that?
I think I'm just used to it. I like I mean, I work from home, obviously, but it's quieter at night. I don't have to deal with, like, I shouldn't say deal with people, but there's very few of us on nights, and we're like a tight knit group, and there's a big shift diff too, like a shift differential pay that you get. So I didn't want to give that up either,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, I've just
It's
always
significant.
been a night person. So
When I was working part time, I think I was working 0.7. So that'd be like 33 hours a week or so.
yeah,
But I was actually getting paid about the same as working full time.
right,
So it's like you sacrificed your nights and your weekends, but you only have to work 4 days a week instead of 5 or something like
right,
that. I think I'd work 3 days one week and 4 days the next week.
yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about your husband and what he does and how you guys juggle having, how many kids do you have?
Well, we have 6 kids, but our youngest is 5 and our oldest is 20. So our 20-year-old is away at college, and she's married. She got married this past summer. Her husband is in the Air Force, so we don't see her very often because she's at college. And when she has a break from college, she usually goes to see him instead.
Yeah. She has like 2 homes right now, right?
Right? Yeah, like 3. I mean, she's still. I guess she doesn't really consider our house her home anymore, but she's got her dorm room where she lives with her 3 friends on campus, and then her house on base in North Dakota. So
Right. And so you guys were able to juggle your shifts so that you could. Are you still using daycare in any way right now, or are all the kids
no,
in school now?
we've never we haven't used daycare since I started working in my current position. And especially since I've been working from home, we haven't had to use daycare because, well, I mean, I work at night, so usually the kids are in bed when I'm working anyway. But um, even if they're up, they can. They're older. They're older now, so they are self-sufficient and don't bother me too much. But yeah,
And then you finish before they get to school.
yeah, I get off work right before I have to get them up and get them ready for school. So yeah, it's a perfect hours.
I feel like you always handled the third shift a little bit better than I did because I would always try to like sneak off and take a nap on my lunch hour.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I feel like you were able to just power through.
Yeah, I never needed to take a nap. I was always afraid I wouldn't wake up for one thing, and yeah, I've just always.
Probably because you knew that happened to me a few times. I remember I had a few of you. I would tell you, I'm like, I'm so tired. I'm worried I won't wake up. So here's my phone number.
Yeah.
And that's probably how we really started to get to know each other. There were a few of us that like if I'd say if I'm not back by such and such time, could you please just like ring my phone, even if you don't talk to me or just anything, just I need that extra security. And there were a couple of us that did that back and forth, and it saved our butts a few
Yeah.
times. There was a pretty strict policy about absences,
Right.
and it wasn't anything to fool around with.
Right.
So, all right, so let's change gears a tiny bit and just chat about like how you got started. Did you do any other work before you became a medical secretary / transcriptionist / documentation specialist?
Yeah. So in high school, I worked at a group home, and then after my senior year, when I graduated, my husband and I were already engaged. We were high school sweethearts. We've been together for a long time, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, so I just decided to take a year off and just work full time at the group home. And one night I was working with my good friend Beth, and she was like, I'm really tired of this job. I'm going to go to the tech school tomorrow and just see what they have to offer. And I was like, hey, I have tomorrow off. I'll go with you. So we went to the tech school, and she was talking to the counselor, and I was in there with her, and she decided to sign up for this medical secretary program. And so I was like, I think I'm going to do that with you. So I signed up too. And
Did you have to pay for it?
yes, I had to pay for it. It wasn't that much. I mean, it was 23 years ago, 24 years ago. But yeah, I had to pay for it.
When I was hired, they actually were sponsoring people to, I think they must have had a shortage.
Right.
And so they actually paid for, I had to go through like a crash course. It was like 3 months,
Right.
super intense,
Yep.
8 hours a day, but they were paying us like our hourly wage to go to school and study.
Yeah, I know.
And
I
then
wish
at the
they
end,
would've
we were
had that.
basically guaranteed a job.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as we passed the test, but they took that away years ago.
Yeah.
I think that towards the end, this field has become so competitive that even that organization was only hiring like people from across the country who, previously owned like a medical transcription company
Right.
or like were educators or it was extremely competitive. So let's talk about the change of that field over the years. What have you seen happen at your organization?
Well, there's been so many changes. I mean, from like the programs that we use to we went from straight typing to like proofing, and gosh, I'm blanking. But
The voice recognition
Voice
technology
recognition,
has
yeah.
really changed that whole game. Yeah.
So now we're not. Most of the notes come through already typed up, and we just have to listen through and make corrections. So it's not so much straight typing anymore. It's more proofing and editing.
Mm-hmm. So for those of you that aren't medical transcriptionists, it's kind of like when you're using Siri or Alexa or whoever to like dictate something and it makes a lot of mistakes and like you say something super embarrassing. That also happens to the doctors.
Yeah.
Or it's not even just embarrassing, but it can actually be like medically dangerous.
Right.
If the voice recognition technology hears the wrong medication, you don't want someone basing, further recommendations or treatment or even surgical decisions based on an error
Right.
in a note. So, but quality is an issue right now because a lot of companies are pushing more and more for the doctors to do their own proofing or for the outsourcing places here in the States and also elsewhere. All of the people that are transcribing aren't necessarily medically trained.
Right. So, and at the clinic where I work, there are, in the last 2 years, our department has gone from about 240 transcriptionists down to 49. There's only 49 of us left. And I mean, they cut, nearly 200 people because, a lot of doctors are self-entering now. There's like the younger generation of doctors are coming in and they're, self-entering their own notes. And we have actually more people in our QA department right now than we have in our actual transcription department. There are more people working in QA and proofing doctors' self-entered notes than there are doctors dictating for us to transcribe. So, yeah, it's changed a lot.
And I think that some of that has been pushed as like they've changed formats or platforms for the electronic record.
Right.
So I think now a lot of the platforms that people are using are more dependent on like forms and,
Right.
just ticking the boxes.
Yep.
And that's one reason that you see doctors looking at their computer while they're in the room with you because they're doing their note while they're talking to you.
Right.
It's a lot to ask for a doctor to be responsible for.
Yeah, I think it's
all
I
of
think
that.
it's very time consuming for them. I think it would just be easier for them to, to pick up the dictaphone and say what they want their note. I think, but times are changing. So
Yeah, I think that the old way with the dictation, it was able they were able to give a more personal narrative
Right.
of the patient, like to talk about their journey and like, the story of what happened and how they got here and what they've done. And now it's more like I said, just ticking the boxes, and it's not as personalized.
Right.
So I think you lose a little bit in that, but I understand like they're all trying to save money and,
Right.
meet regulations and all of that. So let's talk about what does your husband do?
He works for a malting company. He's the head of the maintenance department there. So he
What is malting?
malting
I
is
didn't know
like
what you meant the first time
so
you said that.
they work they make malt for like beer and a lot of malt for like craft products and like the new
I
like
don't even know what kind of craft products you would use malt
yeah,
in.
I don't know either. But yeah, one of their biggest suppliers is Kraft. And then also like the new, there's a lot of people starting up their own brewing companies. So they do a lot of the malt for those small companies also. So he works, there are three branches. The main company is out of Europe. And then there's three plants in the United States, one in Minnesota, one in Wisconsin, and one in Montana.
And has he always done that, or has he done other work too?
He's done other work too. He went to school for carpentry, and so he did that for a while, and then he worked at the
I
company.
didn't even know that.
Yeah, he went to the company where he's working now and got laid off, and then while he was laid off, he started working at Slumberland selling furniture, and while he was doing that, that's when my job decided that we could work from home. So this was 13 years ago. So he said, I think I'm going to go to school for that. And then you and I can just work at home together. And so he did. And while he was in school, about a month before he finished school, someone from the company that he works at now came in to Slumberland to buy furniture. And they were like, hey, how come you never came back? And he said, well, they never called me back. And so the guy said, well, we have an opening right now. You should come right now and apply. And so he went there that day and got a job. And he did finish the medical transcription program, but he never actually worked as a medical transcriptionist. And he started out in production, just on the production side of things. And then about 4 years ago, he got promoted to a management position.
So medical transcription is kind of that work from home job that most people think of first.
Right.
Like a lot of people that know about working from home think about medical transcription and are like, I should just go through a program right now. What do you say to people who are interested in doing what you do? What do you say now?
I don't even know
what you know.
Yeah, I don't even know if they offer it as a program anymore. I mean, I think that they probably offer the medical secretary side of things, which also includes transcription, but I'm not sure that I would encourage someone to go into this field right now, just because things are changing so much. And I think until things kind of stabilize or I don't know, stabilize really isn't the right word, but I think that our skill set is still very useful, but they're not needing us as much as they were, in the last 20 years. So I think our jobs are going to be changing over the next 20 years to more of a quality, kind of like our quality department, where we're going to be more proofing notes that doctors self-enter than actually transcribing ourselves.
Mm-hmm. When I started, we were still literally typing every single word that they said from scratch. And then I think when my first daughter was born, that's when they, so we've been working from home for some time and we never had to go on site, but we all were basically forced to go on site to go through the training to learn how to use the voice recognition technology.
Right.
A lot of people know the program, is it Dragon or, that's not what we use, but we use something similar to it. And just having to learn how to follow along and learn new keyboard shortcuts and just ways to navigate to follow along and make those changes effectively and efficiently.
Right.
And it did speed us up. I would say we probably increased our speed by what, like double? I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, I would say so. Like, I would say when we were straight hand typing, um, I was typing like 14 or 15 minutes per hour of dictation. So,
Which is really fast because, Angela, you're like a rock star at transcription.
well, thank you. But once the voice recognition and the fluency program came along, most people are up to 20 to 30 minutes per hour of dictation. So that just means for like every hour that someone talks, like if someone dictated a note that was 30 minutes long, it would take someone about an hour to an hour and a half to type that note.
Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people are trying to get hired through programs like Rev or something like that, but they often pay you based on your productivity,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
how
like
many
your line
words you
count and-
transcribe. And there is a tool that a lot of us transcriptionists use, which is a foot pedal. And I think if you don't have that foot pedal, it would really slow you down. Do you still use a foot
my
pedal
gosh,
now, or
yes.
is it gone?
Oh no, you still use a foot pedal. I don't even know.
How does it work? Tell
I don't
us.
even know how. It's so the foot pedal is basically like a sewing machine pedal, and on each, so to play the dictation, you just put your foot in the middle of the foot pedal, and then on one side there's like a lever for rewind and a lever for fast forward, and so you basically just step on it like a sewing machine pedal, and then the voice comes through your headset.
And you lift up your foot and it pauses.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I actually was starting to experience getting tendonitis in my wrists from typing so much. And I also was getting it in my ankle or my foot from that motion. You have to be kind of careful about your ergonomics.
Yeah.
Even, yeah. I probably had bad habits and a lot of stress in my life. But and there's even a thing that you can do. So for those of you who are needing to transcribe anything for yourself, like for instance, okay, for this interview, we're putting this not only into the podcast world on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Stitcher and everything, but we're also putting it onto YouTube. And I'm actually doing closed captioning for this, and I've been doing them myself recently. I use a voice recognition technology program called Otter.ai. And that helps me transcribe my own note. But again, it's just riddled with bad punctuation and all the things that is autocorrecting that's not is not right. Anyway, it still takes me a really long time. And one thing that I learned is that if you can slow down the speed of that voice when you are actually going through and editing and typing, it can actually help you type faster.
Yeah.
I don't know if you did that, but it helped me a lot when I always thought that in order to type faster, I would need to like listen faster.
Right.
And just be faster. But actually, I didn't have to pause and like rewind as often if I could just let it keep going. So when I listen to a podcast or a video, I almost always turn it up to like 1.5 or two times the speed. But if I'm actually transcribing, I'm like at 0.75.
Right.
What about you? What do you do?
It often depends on like the dictator of the note. If it's like a foreign doctor, a lot of times I will slow them down because they're harder to understand. If it's a doctor that talks super slow and like
that's our favorite kind,
yes,
isn't it?
because then you can like speed it up to like 1.5 and you can finish a 20-minute note in 15 minutes.
It makes your productivity look amazing.
Yes, it really does.
For those of us that are on a production schedule, there's a lot of metrics that they're following to see like how fast are you, like how much are you producing in one shift. We were hourly work. I was an hourly worker. You are.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, I guess, for them, it's safeguards to make sure that we're not just slacking off at home, but they can actually see how much you're pushing that pedal, how much you're letting up the pedal, how long you've had pauses.
Right.
Like, did you take a 15-minute break 3 times in that shift? There's a lot that they're following.
Yeah.
So I remember there was a specific doctor who we would just basically like rejoice if we got his note because it'd be like 45 minutes long and you could like speed type it.
I have a few of those where they pop up and I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yes. It's like saves the day.
Yeah.
Let's talk about being an hourly worker.
Yeah.
You have to clock in and clock out.
Right.
What's that like?
Yeah, It's fine. So right now with my position, I have a window. So my window is 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. And just in that window, I need to work 10 hours. But I can't work 10 hours straight. If you work more than 6 hours, you need to take a lunch break. So basically, between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m., I need to put in 10 and a half hours. Unless I,
including, yeah.
yeah, unless I took like an hour break somewhere, then I would just, work 5 hours, take an hour break, work 5 hours. Or
Mhm.
so I basically, my
I'm
window starts at 8, and I normally just start at like 8:45 or 9 because I have to get my kids up at 7:30. So I mean, it doesn't really pay for me. And then I can spend more time with them before I start work and before they go to bed. So we just have like a time card program on the computer that we it's basically like a punch card, So you just go in and punch in and use that same system to punch out for breaks or punch out for lunch, or if you're watching a meeting, you have to punch out of like a productivity pay code into a miscellaneous pay code. So
mhm. Or education or
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that. Yeah. When I was working with you, they were much more strict about our schedule.
yeah,
We had to log in at a certain
right,
time. We had to have approval ahead of time if we wanted to take time off. But actually, because it was 24/7 and for a hospital environment, we had to work holidays.
right.
And so I know you and I worked a lot of Thanksgivings and Christmases and all the things together, which we only had to work 1 out of 6 in a year,
I
but
think
I
so.
was usually working 5 or 6. And do you want to talk about why? Do you remember the coupons? Do
Oh
they still give
yes, yeah. They
coupons
used to
now?
give you coupons if you volunteered to work, and then it was like undeniable PTO. So if you wanted a day off and it wasn't available, you could cash in your coupon to take to be able to take it. But
What was terrible, though, is the people that were working Monday through Friday, they had every weekend
right,
off, but we were scheduled to work every single weekend. And if we wanted to take a Saturday night
yeah,
off for like a wedding or something like that, we actually had to take pay time off. And
right,
so, the fact that we were only working 3 or 4 days a week, or at least I was, we had a few days built in, but they weren't the days that you wanted to take
right,
off. And so I was working, 4th of July,
yeah,
Labor Day, Memorial Day. And when I was working and I moved
yeah,
away, I actually could work on site. Like I could drive
yeah,
back in up to Minnesota to see my family, and I could actually drive on site and go work. They have like a drop-in desk,
yeah,
a few of
yeah.
them for people that like if they had technical problems. Did you ever have to use that?
No, I never did.
Oh my goodness, I
I should
used it.
knock on wood. Yeah, I
Yeah.
never.
Well, I always lived too far away to actually have to be able to go in during technical problems.
Right.
I just have to like talk to the supervisor and make it up somehow. But when I was coming home for Thanksgiving or Christmas, it kind of stunk because, I would go and see my family and then I would have to drive in
Yeah.
and sit all night and work. And actually, like when I was nursing the babies and everything, my husband would even have to drive them in
Yeah.
and I'd have to like get him logged in the middle of the night into this building. I'd have to like go up and like sign him into a book, and he would come in and we would go into that lactation
Yeah.
room and I would like literally nurse the baby in the lactation room. And then he would leave and drive home. It was a 20-minute drive.
Yeah.
um, but let's talk about the commute. So you used to commute. It
Right.
was you don't live close to where you
No,
worked.
it's an hour one way. So I was commuting 2 hours a day back and forth. So when I was working
I like
10 hours, it was a 12-hour day for me with the commute.
We were talking the other day and you added it up. How many hours a week were you commuting?
Yeah, so it was like 12 hours. No, it was like 14 and a half once you added in like because it took an hour to get there, but then, to be able to park your car and get into the building and, get situated, punch in. And, it ended up being like an so a 2-hour drive each day, but then a half an hour extra just to get. So it was, yeah, like 14 and a half hours, 15 hours a week just in the commute.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you have 6
Right.
kids
And which I tell everyone there's
and
no
you had
way that we would have been able to have such a large family if I was still commuting to work.
so let's talk about that. We both had we both had pregnancies while we were working together. And because my family lives far away. I'm in Arizona now, and my family's in Minnesota, and my husband's is in Arkansas and Missouri and Tennessee and everywhere. So he always wanted to kind of keep it quiet if we were pregnant in order to, be able to tell family in person.
Right.
But I just couldn't contain myself. And so Angela, I think, was the first to know. Basically every time.
I know.
I got pregnant.
I think you were the first to know with at least the last two, if not the last three. I think actually with the last two, you might have known before my husband even knew. Because I would take a pregnancy test at night and you'd be working and I'd be like, oh my gosh.
I think my husband knew first, but yeah, that's possible that could have happened. Yeah. But you gave me some excellent advice because I was really nervous. Like, how am I going to be able to work and have a newborn in the house? And I asked you, what do you do? Because you can, especially back then when they were really strict about how often we could take a lunch, it was strict. They were 30 minutes. And if you wanted to go into an hour, I think you sometimes even had to ask permission.
Yeah.
And they were very, you had to log in at a certain time and log out. And about 5 years ago, when we both had our last kid, we were given the opportunity to change our schedule.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, we both ended up keeping the third shift. And that's when I used my opportunity to advocate for myself. I had read Tim Ferriss's book on the 4-Hour Work Week. And even though none of the stuff that he talked about applied to me as an employee like that, something that he said just sparked something in me. And I went to the supervisor and I was like, hey, I'll do this for you, but this is what I want you to do for me. And I actually was able to get a 90-minute flexible lunch. And so they basically said I could take 90 minutes of lunch every night. And I could take it as 3 30-minute lunches or 2 45-minute lunches or an hour and then 30 minutes. And it was amazing for when I was able to, have my baby, especially that third one. Because it was, my husband would take the baby to me. And the advice that you gave me was put a pillow on your lap. And normally you don't want to try to type with the baby in your lap. But if you need to, it's not great for your arms, but it can get you through in a pinch.
Right. I did that a lot. I
learned it from you.
I did that with my last 4 kids. Every single one of them nursed for 18 months, never once had a bottle. I never ever pumped. I would just lay a pillow in my lap and they would nurse and I would just type over the top of them.
I have a lot of respect for people who do pump and all of that because it's very time consuming. Yeah. And I feel like we were able to just save a lot of money. Yeah. We didn't have to buy all of that stuff. And we were able to save a lot of time to just get it one and done.
Right,
Right. I remember I asked you before I think I must have been pregnant. And I think I just asked you, do you feel like you're a stay-at-home mom or do you feel like you're a working mom? Because you're at home.
Right.
Do you remember what you said?
Well, I don't remember what I said, but I think, I feel like a working mom. Although a lot of people, a lot of my kids' friends, parents are like, oh, so you just are a stay-at-home mom? And I was like, no, I work, I some people don't even realize that I work because, but because I work from home and I don't really, talk about it much or whatever, it doesn't come up or whatever. But, I think a lot of people don't realize that I do have a full-time job. I do work.
I worked all night, actually, while you were sleeping.
Yeah.
I had to start telling my friends, I work third shift, and I've only slept 90 minutes last night, so if I can't make words today, that's why.
Yeah.
And then, so you met me at my wedding. It was actually my wedding reception up in Minnesota, and then when the next time I saw you, you gave me 4 totes of baby clothes. Yeah. So I had only met Angela one time and she had already had 4 girls and she didn't know if she was going to have any more kids and gave me all of her baby clothes, which was amazing because I was having a girl. Yeah. And then you had...
And then I had another girl and then I finally had a boy. So I got 5 girls and my youngest is a little guy. So
I think we're a good example of people who have gotten to know each other virtually. Yeah. We got to know each other virtually through the chat program, whatever it was called, the Skype version of whatever it was. mostly just text, right? Like
Yeah.
we would try not to interrupt each other too much, but sometimes we would kind of get going a little bit. And so it's not like we were picking up the phone and talking. We were just
Right.
texting on Skype or whatever it was called. And but we've been able to meet up a few times, and I really appreciate having a friend I can go see when I go back to
Yeah,
Minnesota,
it's fun.
like you.
Yeah.
We went camping. You came out and visited us at a campsite, and what else have we done? You guys came and visited us
Yeah.
when we had our second baby.
Yeah. When you were where were you in? Were you in Springfield at the time? No, where were you?
No, we were in Southern Illinois.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you drove like 9 hours.
Yeah, that's right.
With all of your kids.
Yeah, that was fun though. We had a blast that time when we came to see you. We did a lot of fun stuff.
We went to the City Museum in St. Louis, which, by the way, if you've never been there, in the middle of the United States in St. Louis, there's a place called the City Museum, and it's good.
It's amazing, yeah.
So how do you stay active? You work from home, and then you sleep in the daytime.
Yeah.
What do you do to get out and or how do you stay
well, I love to
busy?
I love to bike. And I like to walk. I don't run. My husband is a marathon runner. He just ran a half marathon last weekend, but I don't run. But I love to walk. And my husband and I walk every night together just to get kind of away from the kids for half hour, 45 minutes, and have an adult conversation without the kids around. So we do that every night. And then I try to bike at least a couple times a week when the weather's decent, but I've been slacking lately. Also,
right.
I am a Girl Scout leader for a couple of my kids' troops. So I've been a leader for 12 years, so that keeps me busy too, just planning stuff for our meetings and all of that.
And keeps you involved in the community too.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. I like it. I have, between the two troops that I have about 18 girls in my troops, so it's fun. And then,
have you always done 2 troops? That's a lot.
No, I usually have only done 1 troop, but my youngest little girl, Peyton, when she was in kindergarten, there wasn't anybody to lead a troop for her, so I said, well, I guess I'll do it. So I have, in our small community that we live in, I am the Girl Scout leader for kindergarten first, second, and third, and then basically kindergarten through 6th grade, and then I have a helper that helps me with the 3rd and 4th grade troop.
Wow! And now you're in a small town, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Right by the river.
Yep. Kind of on the
and your kids are at school?
Wisconsin border. Yeah. Yep. Yes, my kids are at school.
And your kids are all going to school this year.
Right. They're in school full time right now. On Wednesdays, our elementary kids have a half a day of school, and our high school kids are distance learning on Wednesdays. So then in the mornings on Wednesdays, they do like a clean sweep of the high school, like a deep cleaning. And then once the elementary kids go home at noon, they do a deep cleaning of the elementary school. And my husband's on the school board.
So now you can sleep when your kids...
What's that?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say my husband's on the school board, so he was able to advocate for the kids going back to school. I know it's a hot topic right now, but my kids did not like the distance learning. Although I realize that it is for some people that does work better, but for us, my kids would rather be in school, and I would rather them be in school. We live in a small community, and our rates are very, very, very low. So if I lived in a bigger community where the cases were higher, I might have a different opinion on sending my kids back to school.
Does your school offer any other choices this year?
Yeah. If you want to keep your kids distant learning, we have a The Minnesota Virtual Academy is actually based out of our high school. So um, you can do the Minnesota Virtual Academy, or if you want to like stay enrolled in the school, you can do the online learning um, with your class. The some of the classrooms have cameras in the room, so like you are watching class on your computer and still able to participate, and the teacher can talk to you still, and so they have a
Wow,
lot
so
of
there's two
options.
different virtual
Yeah.
options.
Yep.
Oh, you haven't told me yet about your exercise bike inside.
Oh yeah. So like last year, my department, we had some special projects that we worked on that weren't transcription, that we could do. We did it for like 2 hours of our shift, and they offered unlimited overtime doing it. And it was basically um, like chart review. So if a doctor sent in outside records, you would just go through and make sure that it got filed correctly, and like the paper wasn't upside down or something like that. So another way that I kept active then was I had a just a foot pedal under my bike. So when I was working, or a foot pedal under my desk. So when I was working, I would just pedal my foot pedal. I have it here. I can show it to you. So it's
So it's a foot pedal that's not the same kind that you use for transcription. It's
right.
like
Yep.
it looks like a
Yeah.
bike. So you can put that under, so it's like short.
Yep.
It's like what, a foot and a half, 2 feet tall,
Yeah. It's
and
not
it's
very
short,
big.
and you can put it under your desk and actually like use it like you're pedaling, like you're sitting in your own chair.
Yeah.
And you stick your feet in
Yep.
there.
Yep.
Do you feel like it actually helps you burn calories, or is it more for like motility and like
Oh yeah,
just
it
keeping
definitely
your body
helped you
limber?
burn calories. And I would put my Fitbit around my ankle, and then I would get steps for it also. And so when I was in like step challenges, I was really pedaling. But I have to give
Wow.
my
Oh, and you mentioned earlier.
I have to give my sister credit for that, because she was the one. She she works at the same clinic as I do, and she used to do transcription, but now she switched to a different department. Um, so that was her find. She found that on Amazon and got one, and then I was like, I need one of those.
Yeah. So we were all together training for the what do we call that? Back in right before I ended up leaving the clinic, we were all studying to be certified for, what was it called? Certified.
Healthcare
Help me out.
documentation, oh yeah, CHDS, so Certified Healthcare Documentation Specialist.
Yes. And you went through with it. I actually ended up not finishing because then I didn't end up staying at the clinic.
Yeah. So
Which worked out
I
for
went
me.
through all the training, and then I took the test, and it was a super intense test. And so the first part of the test is registered healthcare documentation specialist. So you take that part of the test, and if you pass, you can move on to the second part of the test. So I took the test, and when I finished and submitted it, I was like, oh, there's no way I passed that. But then I did pass it, and then I did the second part and passed that. So yeah, so I got my certification 3 years ago, and then I just recertified this past July. So, and to stay certified, you have to get so many like education credits. Um, so it's like,
It was way more intense than what we studied to become medical
yes,
transcriptionists. It was like literally the next level. I felt
yeah,
like I was studying like to be a doctor.
yeah,
I mean, like you really had to get in there
yeah,
and know those words.
yeah. It was,
I always tell people I can spell the words, but I don't necessarily know like where that is or what it
yeah,
means. And I think that to go through that program, you really have to like understand, so that you're less likely to make errors in
right,
the medical
right.
record. Do you feel like getting that certification helped you with your job security in terms of like, they've had so much restructuring in your
Yeah,
department now? You just talked about 200 people got let go, and or were able to like, I think they were able to get another job, or
yeah,
they had some time, right?
yeah. They had some, the clinic helped them find other positions within the clinic if that's what they wanted. Um, or if
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to leave and look elsewhere, that some people did that too. But a lot of people stayed at the clinic and just transitioned into other roles. Um, and I don't really know if it helped me Um,
Like I
because
said, you're a rock star. I mean, like you definitely have been around and you can type super fast and you have the certification, but you,
yeah, some of my coworkers that had the certification got let go, and some of us got kept. So, and some people that got kept don't have the certification. So I don't know if it. I mean, it didn't hurt me, obviously,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't know if it was one of the factors in them keeping me.
When I left the position, it was back when they offered like a separation package. So
Yeah.
they basically said, we're going to be restructuring because we're implementing this new program, Epic, and it's just going to change the whole flow of the
Right.
organization. And we're just not going to need as many. And over the years, I would give them credit. They really did a good job at always giving people a chance to get a different job. And this time they were like, you can voluntarily separate. It's not necessarily severance. They called it the separation
Yeah.
package. You're not being laid off. You're not being fired.
Right.
You can choose. And at that point, I had already started teaching English as a second language. And I kept telling you and other people, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so fun.
Yeah.
But of course, I need to stay. I've got my pension. I've got my benefits. I've
Right.
got the health care, insurance for our whole family at the time. And it was right after my husband was hired at his company he had been contract before, and then this was his full-time position, and he all of a sudden had benefits.
Yeah.
And so for the first time I was like, oh my goodness, I think I actually could, do this English thing full-time, and it really was fun.
Yeah.
So I was one of the few people who had training outside of transcription. A lot of people that are in that field have been doing it for 30, 40 years.
Right.
So, all right. Do you have anything else you want to share with people who are just getting started and not in medical transcription, but getting started working from home for the first time? Like, have you learned any tips or tricks along the way that you feel might be helpful to people?
I would say that even though you're working from home, try to separate your work from your home life. Like, I don't even go near my workstation when I'm not scheduled to work. I don't think about it. I don't turn on my computer. I try to separate my work from my home. Even though I work at home, I try to separate the two.
Now, are you, since you're hourly, you can just turn it off at the end of your shift,
Right.
and you don't have to keep coming back. But do you ever have opportunity to work extra? Like we talked
Yeah.
about the vacations earlier.
Right. Well, about a year ago, they were offering overtime, and so I did work a lot of overtime because my daughter was getting married and I needed the extra money. But yeah, but if overtime's not available, then I don't. I mean,
And I never asked you, where is your workstation set up in your home?
so it's set up. We have a 2-story house, and our downstairs is mainly just an open area where we have like a family room, living room area, and then the kitchen and the dining room. And so my workspace is just in a corner of our family room downstairs. And then upstairs is like a family room and and there's a bathroom down here, and like I said, the kitchen. So I decided to put my workstation down here because since I work third shift, everybody's asleep upstairs, and there's a bathroom down here in the kitchen. So I don't have to, go past anybody's bedroom to use the bathroom or get a drink or a snack or anything like that.
I think being that close to the kitchen would be problematic for me.
It is sometimes very problematic. And sometimes working at night, you get tired and you just need something crunchy. Keep yourself awake.
Yep. Carrots. Eat the carrots. Oh man, I have loved getting to see you. And I know that you aren't normally on camera. Like this is kind of for those of you that are listening to the podcast, you can't see, but Angela is on camera with me today, and that's not part of your job.
No.
Like you're not normally in meetings online.
No,
So
I normally don't see anyone. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I get to like put some makeup and some earrings on today. Yeah, because from working from home, I have to, a lot of times it's a few days before I put actual clothes on. If I don't have to go anywhere.
Right. Yes, I enjoyed that. Now I'm on camera all the time,
Yeah.
but I enjoyed, like, literally nobody could see you. Like, there wasn't a camera. Like, there was not, like, the possibility of there being a camera because there just wasn't one.
Yeah.
And that was kind of
Yeah.
nice. Well, I know we could go on and on and on, but I think we're running out of time here. I want to thank you again for being brave and coming on camera with me
Well, thanks
today
for asking
or
me.
recording this podcast.
It was fun.
It's so fun and to get to catch up too. So, all right. Well, this is Yes, I Work From Home. And thank you, Angela and Arlene, for coming today.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll see ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye. This is an exciting week here for us at Yes, I Work From Home. Our podcast has officially been accepted on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, all the places you can find your podcasts. Go ahead and go to our website if you're interested in seeing the transcript, the video, www.yesiworkfromhome.com/podcast. There you can also find a button that if you're interested in being an interview guest on our show, you can fill it out and let us know a little bit about you, what you do, who you help, and why you want to be on the show. See you next time. Thank you so much.